Okay, ready to go.
Okay. Will you please, why is that not opening? Okay. Will you please do roll call for the regular meeting Tuesday, March 16th, 2021, 6 p.m., 6:02 p.m. Thank you.
Mr. Drew Bartlett,
I'm here.
Mr. Brent Whitfield, Mr. Tom Copeland is not present. Miss Leah Furch. She is here. Yeah. Mr. John Paxman,
Present.
Mr. Mark Rickards is
Emily,
he
he's
is
here.
he is
He's
here.
here. He needs you to let him in. Yeah.
And Mr. Brendan Lynch.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm here too.
Thanks, Mark.
We're going to mark him absent, even though I'm looking at him. All right. Oh, Emily, please let the record reflect that Tom Copeland is present.
Thank you.
Okay, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Careful with your headsets. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any additions, deletions, or reordering of the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to public comment on non-agenda items. Emily, do you have anything to read into the record?
I do not.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items. We can move both of those. Can I have a motion to move the consent agenda?
This is Brent. I move consent.
Thank you, Brent. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Paxton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving to the action agenda, item A is a CRA facade grant on 810 South Dixie Highway. Chris, can you read through that for us?
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, we have another CRA facade grant here. This is for 810 South Dixie Highway. This is an applicant we've been working with for the past couple months to revise and make his application a great application to put in front of you guys. This is provided to us by Ran Degan, who's on the phone or online tonight also, representing Shunra Holdings. The building is, you're probably familiar with the property. It's built in 1950. It's about a 9,000 square foot total property, a building. He's requesting funding for assistance with the doors, windows, and facade improvements such as paint and patching. Currently, he does have one tenant in there. That's Community Partners of South Florida, or also known as Housing Partnership. Much of the rest of the property is vacant, and he's hoping with these improvements to be able to lease out the property, make it much more attractive to lease it out, both along the Dixie Highway side and along the back side too, in which a couple of the existing garage doors are going to be removed and replaced with windows and hurricane-proof, all hurricane-proof windows and doors. He's estimating that this project's going to cost close to $60,000 to redo all the windows, doors, painting, and patching. He's requesting this grant, which we received a couple months ago, requesting matching funds of the max, which is $25,000. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Again, Mr. Degan is online with us for any questions, or if you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer them.
Chris, thank you. Why don't we take a motion, then we'll have discussion and questions for both or either of you. Is anybody ready to?
Paxman, I move we approve the CRA facade grant for $25,000 for 810 South Dixie Highway.
Second.
So we have a motion by John Paxman and seconded by Brent Whitfield. So let's, is there any discussion, questions for the applicant or for Chris? No.
No, I'm just glad someone's taking care of that property and putting their money into it and using our facade grant money for what it's been set there to do.
I agree. It's an excellent opportunity to leverage some dollars.
I was wondering, Chris, I guess is there any indication of what type of tenant? And it seems like an office space. Is that what we're assuming?
Primarily at
Chris,
this time. Yeah, primarily. I think the market in that area is going to call for more for office space or micro office space down there versus retail.
Okay.
Emily, do we have any public comments?
No.
Okay, all in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your investment.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Bryce.
Okay. Action agenda B, refinance of loans with PNC Bank for property acquisition.
Can you all hear me?
Joan, would you? Yes.
Okay, great. As you probably all remember, starting, I believe, back in 2018, we took out lines of credit. Over the last few years, we've took out a total of 3 lines of credit. We have refinanced once, and now we have an opportunity to refinance once again. It was actually Commissioner Paxman who made the recommendation late last year, and we've been working closely with PNC and our bond counsel and David to get the package together and ready for you. We're not going to probably save as much as we did last time, but still there is a savings of $50,000 if we refinance all 3 of these loans and put them all into one debt. And we will also pay off our loans 1 year early in 2027 versus 2028. So we have drafted up a resolution 2102 for you to review and also approve the refinancing of our lines of credit. This also, just so you know, does have to go to the City Commission for approval. So we, if this passes tonight, it goes straight over to the city literally tonight, and hopefully will be on their agenda. That's later this month. I believe it's about the 26th. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, John.
I actually have contacted Joan earlier about paragraph 3 of the loan agreement, which has the indicative fixed rates and the prepayment schedule. And I understand from my discussions with Joan that we will not be prepaying this loan just because of our structure of our finances. But I asked for like some information about the indicative fixed rates under paragraph Roman numeral 3. So.
And Mr. Chair, David Tulsa's board attorney. We do have Lori Smith-Lala, my law partner, who's on the Zoom call as well, whose specialty is public finance. So, you know, if you have any questions or need further clarifications, Lori can provide that.
Well, are we refinancing this at 1.74 or thereabouts? Or I guess
actually it's going to be a taxable rate, and the indicative rate for the taxable rate with a make whole provision prepayment, which is, you know, Joan said she wasn't going to be necessarily prepaying this, so it's really your best option because it has a lower interest rate cost associated with that. and the indicative rate is 2.2%. What they're going to do is it's based on a scale, the bank's cost of borrowing. So 2 days prior to the funding, we'll look to see what that rate is. That rate could go up, that rate could go down. What we did provide for in the resolution also is that we would not go forward with this if it went higher than 2.5% interest rate, because the savings at that point would be minimal.
All right.
Thank you.
What indexes do they use, or indices do they use?
I'm not sure. It just says the bank's cost of borrowing.
Okay. It helps. I mean, it's a good idea to refinance if we can save money, and if we can't save money, there's no sense in paying the fees.
And that's why we put an interest rate not to exceed in here in the resolution. So that way, you know, if the time comes and it doesn't meet the requirements, we'll just pull the plug.
Okay. Are there any other discussions on this item? Any other questions?
Just to follow up on that, does the loan document have a way to pull the plug? If the interest rates get to that point, how do you pull the plug?
That's the resolution. The resolution that you're authorizing. Right now, we do not have a loan agreement in place. This is just a term sheet. And so our acceptance of the term sheet is contingent on a couple factors. One, that the interest rate is within the interest rate not to exceed, and two, that the city approves this loan.
I gotcha. So pull the plug is don't refinance. That's not
right.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good.
Do you have a motion on this yet?
We don't. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I move that we refinance our loans at PNC Bank according to the resolution and authorize staff to execute as necessary.
I'll second that.
That's Mark Rickards. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Emily, did you have any comments on this?
Not on this item.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say so.
Brendan, I think I just
yes, John.
I think I have to add we authorize the chair and staff. I only said staff.
Actually, the resolution takes all that into consideration. So just approval of a motion to approve the resolution will take care of all of that.
Yeah, I move we approve the resolution to refinance the loans with PNC Bank for property acquisition. I hope it's an amended motion. I hope it's acceptable.
I'm fine with that too.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion stated, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Lori.
Did that a lot.
Lifesaver.
The final action agenda item is C. Joan, would you read us through this? It's purchase of privately owned property at 604 First Avenue South and 30 South K Street.
Okay, first I need to apologize. It's actually 614 First Avenue South and 30 South K. These are two properties that we targeted probably several years ago due to their location and due to the fact that there was a very, very old structure on it, dilapidated structure that the city finally actually had to demolish. But we were not able to come to an agreement on the price with the owners. And at that time, our maximum offer was $600,000, which was about what Anderson and Carr told us that they were worth. So, so fast forward, and you know, we've bought these other properties at L&M and also on the other side of K and First. And you know, obviously, it's come to our attention that moving forward, whether or not we do the element is going to somewhat be up to our new commission and the feelings of the people that they listen to and the people that they represent. So taking that into account, my thought was that these two particular pieces of property, I think, offer us an opportunity, and it gives us a little bit more, gives us and the city more options for moving forward. So Option A is, everything works out great and we get to do the element project, and taking into account, of course, that, we do have to redo the design, and we are trying to schedule a meeting within the next few weeks again to get as much input from the public as possible on that. But one of the many things that we heard was that people thought we were doing a rental project and we weren't offering any opportunities for home ownership, or we weren't offering affordable units, which, certainly could be put into the element if that project does move forward. I thought owning this property as well as the other one at the end of at K and First gives us the opportunity of doing a couple different things. One would be going ahead with the element and then using this particular project to do some kind of home ownership townhouse project, so we can actually have some ownership in the downtown. If for some reason the city commission is willing to move forward with the element and wants to keep some of those historic homes and is willing to move them over to this site, then we have a site ready for them to move them to. If that's not the case, then obviously we could do some townhomes on this site. The other kind of thing hanging out there is we've been working with the city probably for at least the last 4 years on the concept of a downtown parking garage. And the thought was back in, I think, 2018, when we started all this, is that the parking garage would go on L&M and we were going to have a downtown hotel. And that fell through. Next, the city asked us to purchase the properties over on K and First next to the city lot that already exists. And they wanted to do a garage there instead. And that left us the opportunity to do a mixed use project on L&M. Again, I know that we have a parking study. I know that we have some different layouts, and I know that we even have, I believe, a couple different designs. What I don't know is if the city's willing to move forward with the parking garage concept or not. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of what ifs. But my thought was that owning these properties kind of gave us a little bit more leeway. And like I said, a few more options for us in the city to consider when it came to redeveloping the downtown. Whether or not it's a rental property, a townhouse property, a parking garage, I think all of these things significantly impact the downtown and provide what we're really looking for, which is more people downtown to go to the restaurants, go to the shops, and really kind of fill in all those vacant stores that we currently have. And I think that, all of that is vital to the downtown being successful in the future. So whether or not, everything moves forward as we had hoped and putting in, up to 100 units, I'm not really sure at this point. We'll certainly have those discussions with the new commission. But when these two particular properties came up, I thought, we might as well take one last shot at it and see if we were able to get them down to a price that I think was reasonable. And Paul Snicken and Anderson and Carr, I can tell you worked extremely hard this past week negotiating. It was not an easy negotiation whatsoever, because the owners not only have, they not only owe taxes, but the property is not exactly in the best shape. So we're looking forward to hopefully owning that particular piece of property, coming up with some plans that dovetail on our other plans, and working with the city commission to try to come up with now, I believe, are 3 really good alternatives to what could happen in the downtown. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. We'll take a motion and a second, and then we'll have discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the privately owned property at 614 for 70 South and 30 South K Street as recommended in the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Second by Mark Rickards. Okay, who wants to?
As part of that motion, does that also include authorizing the chair vice chair and executive director to sign any and all documents necessary to close the transaction as well.
So yes, sorry, I should amend
Okay.
to provide the responsibility as part of the motion to the chair and related parties.
And that's fine with me.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Let's go with some questions or comments.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Mark? Yep.
So Joan, this is for you. It's Mark. Just a couple of questions, and
Sure.
it's just more to make sure kind of things are on the record. So is the idea, and I appreciate your summary because I think that answered some of this. Is the idea to have these two parcels in reserve, or is the idea to make it part of the developer's project as an option? I just want to be clear about that.
Sure. I think there's two options for us and the city commission to consider. One, it would be moving the historic homes from L&M, and that would be 26, 30, and 32 South L, excuse
Mhm.
me, over to this if the city would like to keep them and rehab them and use them for a public purpose or for whatever purpose they might have in mind. And the other option was if we move forward with the element and we are able to demolish those homes, then we would have this piece in order to build potentially some kind of townhouse project where we could have home ownership.
So it would not be part of the element. It's not like the boundary of the element is expanding to include these parcels.
No, I mean, potentially, obviously, it could be done if we put it out by the same developer, but at this point, it's not part of that development, no.
Okay. So I think my question, and this might just be for discussion, is $600,000. I understand where the price came from
It's
at the end,
515, actually.
or 515. Okay. And it used to be 600. Okay.
Yes, it was.
So
Was 1.2, actually, so.
okay. So that money is not money that's going to, it potentially might get reimbursed or bought by the developer or the city? Or is the thought that the CRA holds this forever for options like that the city might use for housing or might use for this?
I think it's, at least for a small staff like ours, it's been incredibly complicated, and it takes a lot of our time to hold land.
I
Just
agree.
because, especially in these sites, we unfortunately have people who, I mean, this site is vacant, but we still have people who, dump on our properties on a regular basis or break into our properties.
Yep.
And, we've probably boarded them up numerous times and sent the police over there. So it's not for us to hold long-term, at least in my mind. I would really like to move forward on a project, both, here and at L&M as soon as we get some clearance from the city commission and some idea of really, what they are thinking. But I would like to probably develop it within the near future while the market is what it is right now.
Okay. I mean, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. So this is true. If I read it right, we're going to finance this acquisition. And so do we need to recoup the entire 515?
We're actually not financing it. This is what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm taking the money from economic development. And the reason that 515 is available from economic development is because the Gulfstream just got their financing. So our agreement with the Gulfstream states that in the first year, we would be paying them $600,000 as part of our incentive. There is, in my mind anyway, there's no possible way on earth, and I have discussed this with William Waters, that they are going to get through site plan, historic preservation, and 2 readings of city commission before October 1st. So that frees up this money for us in order to buy these 2 properties. And then next year's budget, I would rebudget the $600,000 that we would owe to the Gulfstream upon them breaking ground.
Okay, that's great. So we don't have any obligation on this. We would just own it outright.
Correct.
And that frees up a lot of possibilities. Do we have a sense as to whether the commission, I mean, I know that they have a lot of thoughts about the CRA, but I don't know whether we have a sense that the commission would appreciate us moving out and putting this in public ownership. I would personally think they would, because then we get to sort of help dictate what happens to the property in a public, some sort of public process. So I don't know if you have a sense on how they might feel about this.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know specifically for this particular property. You know, we've obviously heard a lot of things during the election on L&M, and I don't know, you know, how much, you know, people understand that penny sales tax were used for the properties that, you know, the city gave us the money for, and how that gets paid back, and or if there's some kind of agreement, you know, hopefully that we can come to. My hope was that, you know, we could come to some kind of compromise and say, you know, okay, we would like to do the element and we would like your help to do that. But if you're really concerned about people owning in the downtown or building some kinds of affordable housing, we can certainly do this on the other 2 lots. So it's kind of like a compromise meeting people in the middle. And it just gives us, I think, more room to try to make as many people happy as possible, if that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, so I think really, based on the conversations I've had with the new commissioners, and not with not all of them, I would think this would be appreciated. It brings the discussion into the public domain versus a private transaction in a very key place. And so I think that it would be well received. And then to me, it comes down to process on what we do going forward. And I think, you know, as we're planning for the element area, a public engagement meeting, I think obviously is in order. And so that's a good step there. And I would certainly see that before we put out an RFP or anything like that, a public engagement on this and the other properties we own would probably, you know, be worthwhile and appreciated. So, and then, you know, we'll get the, hey, we should make it into a park, or we should make it into this or that, you know, those kind of comments. But, you know, at least the engagement will have happened, and, you know, the commission would have a chance to make some decisions based on the fact that we have a piece of property in a very key location right now. So I think it's a great move, and it's a great move with cash, so that we're not bound to having to recoup the dollars. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Joan, may I ask, so if the Gulfstream deal gets fast tracked and they move much faster than we expected, and it does happen to come through, how would you propose we meet our obligation to the Gulfstream?
I could always pull it out of fund balance.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Tom Copeland for the record. Joan, I heard you mention about in the negotiations were difficult because it looks like we may be taking over some fees associated with code violations, or maybe back taxes or something to that effect. I looked at the addendum. It does mention it, but doesn't get into any details. Just for the public's sake, can we talk a little bit about what you think those might be, if you guys have done that analysis?
Sure. So talking with William Waters, there are some fines on the property. I believe the city had to go in at some point and clean up the property, if not do some partial demo. So, you know, as far as that would be concerned, you know, we would certainly reimburse the city for those costs. But the majority of the fines were really just for not keeping up the property. So once we buy them, if we buy these properties, those potentially, you know, would go away. And then as far as the taxes are concerned, you're correct. The taxes haven't been paid for a number of years. And that was kind of a sticking point for us, in that the sellers wanted us to assume those expenses. And luckily, after many discussions with David Tolses and also Paul Snicken and going back and forth, we were able to negotiate a deal whereby we would assume the closing costs but they would assume taking care of all those taxes that are owed to the city.
So that would come out of that would come out of seller proceeds, I guess, would be the way that would work. Okay, that's good to know. And then as far as that takes care of back taxes, and then just again, as far as code violations go, it seems like you're saying these aren't massive violations, and we could also work with the city. It sounds like probably work with William Waters' department, or probably either get that wiped away or mostly taken care of. To the
Yeah, I
extent that
mean,
we
you know, anytime the city, anytime a piece of property changes hands, you can go to the city and request a reduction, I believe up to everything but 10%. I believe the city wants their 10%, you know, for the administrative costs that they've had to bear, but everything else potentially could be taken care of, you know, especially if we come in with a plan of, you know, what it is that we're going to do here. And certainly in the interim, we'll, you know, get our people down there to clean it up and keep it clean and maintained as best as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. I mean, just as a matter of comment, I mean, I'm supportive of this. I'm a little bit surprised because we've just had a massive changeover on the dais, as you all know. And, you know, they're all being sworn in right now over at Bryant Park. Well, we're talking about this project that has huge implications for this neighborhood. And a lot of the folks that were very active in this election cycle, they really made the CRA a sticking point and what's been happening on the L&M Street. So, you know, I guess I just find that irony there. This is a corner that is right in the middle of those neighbors, you know, and so, you know, it's important to bring them in on that. I love that we're being proactive from the very start and welcoming those conversations and having those conversations about what can this land turn into. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting point. But thank you, Joan.
No, certainly. For people who are on the outside or, you know, not necessarily listening to all of our meetings, you know, the discussions with the city took place, you know, over 4 years ago, and with the current administration and the ideas of, you know, doing these different things for different reasons. And, you know, it's morphed several times since then. And so, you know, I think our board's been really good about, you know, discussing it, but maybe, you know, it hasn't necessarily been discussed as much as maybe it probably could have, you know, up on the dais. So I think, you know, it's a good time for us to kind of just put the brakes on and say, you know, look, we know we have this, and we know that, you know, you have these issues, and, you know, we'd like to address them best we can. But, you know, here's some other options for us as well that, you know, the end result is, you know, we get to do the redevelopment that we're supposed to do, and we help what our main mission goal is to obviously to increase values, but also to help support our downtown. And, you know, there's a lot of pieces for sale in the downtown. There's a lot of vacant spaces downtown, and there's a lot of businesses that are struggling. And so, you know, whether it's, you know, now or 5 years or 10 years from now, you know, I would really like us to do our best to at least, you know, secure as much as we can and get as much redevelopment done. So those potential owners or those owners that are there now and the businesses that are there can, you know, make a living.
Are there any other comments?
Yes, Chair, if I could just have a quick comment. Yeah, I'm just supportive of the purchase, and I'd like to say I totally understand Mr. Copeland's comment regarding changeover, but I think, you know, core mission for a CRA is redevelopment. We're not dictating with this what we think should happen at that site, and I think it actually sets us up, as was described by Joan, to have a lot of optionality, which I think is going to be something that this commission should welcome. So if the discussion expands and what we think is the best fit for downtown to revitalize, which I think is the Element Project, turns out to be something that the commission and the voters and the people think is not the best fit, this actually gives us more opportunity to work with those folks and those interested parties. So I'm supportive of it. I think it fits right with our core mission. We were at the mid grand opening, they're 80% full. So you can't tell me there aren't people that want to move to Lake Worth. So if we can provide housing, that's got to support businesses that, as Joan has just mentioned, have been struggling. And so, yeah, I'm very supportive of this, and I think it gives us good optionality to work with whatever the vision might be and how we maybe need to incorporate other people's views in our vision. But I think it's good.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
actually,
sorry. Yep, Drew.
I didn't know if you had any, but I mean, this could come after the vote, but so one of the things I think we should do, I think we had a lot of good discussion here and good conversation about why we think it's important to move forward now. I think we need to communicate that to the new commissioners before someone else, it gets communicated to them in a different way, right? So we were very thoughtful. We aren't going rogue. We aren't, ignoring what happened. But what we're doing is we're pulling, we've got a very key parcel. It's in private ownership. It could go any direction. We have an opportunity to put it in public ownership, and then engage the public and the commission and how we want to move forward. And we thought it was a good idea to do that. And we want to start that dialogue with them and go forward and have a good community conversation about what to do with this land that we couldn't have before, right? Because it wasn't ours. So, but I think we've got to figure out, we've got to communicate that with the commissioners individually. And so I'm not sure if there's a plan to do that or a letter, but I think that would be good to do so that they hear why we move forward. And so, Joan, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Brendan actually instructed me yesterday to start setting up meetings. So yeah, hopefully we'll be meeting with them one-on-one starting April 1st.
So those meetings will be Brendan and you, Joan, one-on-one with each, which makes sense, the chair and the director.
To start
so
with, yeah.
And Drew, your thought is each of us should make that same outreach.
I mean, I think that's fine. I do think that we probably need to talk to them before April 1st on this transaction, just to get that in there. And so I don't know, we can divide up who to call or something like that, but I do think just picking up the phone tomorrow or something and saying, hey, we had a CRA meeting, we did this, we think this is why.
Yeah, I think this is Brendan Lynch. I think that, we all have city commissioners that we are close with and communicate with, and I think can't hurt to hear it from more than one. So I'd say, whoever you would like to reach out to and speak with, I think it's a great idea. Always staying in front of the rumors is a positive thing, because it's very obvious that those that were running on and opposed to the L&M project might look at this as we're doubling down, and we want to make sure that's not the way it's viewed.
This is Tom. I just wanted to make the comment that we have a closing date of April 16th too. So there might be some sort of consideration that we're not putting the cart before the horse here as well. Joan, does that closing date, if it's cash, does that closing date get moved up in any way? Or is that for acceptance, inspections, whatever else that might happen? Just maybe a little bit of insight into how we got to a 30-day closing date.
That's just kind of standard. David makes me do that to make sure we do our due diligence on it. They probably would have liked to close tomorrow.
Sure.
But with David's advice, we were able to change it a little bit to the 16th. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that, David.
Yeah, we typically, we'll order title, we'll do survey, tax and lien search, all those things. I don't think we're doing any kind of phase one, but definitely get the title work in, make sure there's nothing outstanding that's really too crazy or that's not addressable. But 30 days is usually the minimum amount of time that we like to have in order to close.
That's fair. That's fair. It is land, so that makes it an easier transaction, right? And it is cash, which makes it an easier transaction once title is pulled and all that. But yeah, okay. That's all for
It
me.
look, Tom, if it's helpful, it looks like it's a 2-week due diligence period.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I saw that.
okay. Emily, is there any public on this?
No public comment on this item.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. On to Executive Director's report. Joan,
Sure. Chris is going to do a commercial grant update for you. Just before he gets to that, I haven't wanted to let you know that we did our community show. The opening was last Friday. Obviously, you can see all the local art in the room. We are taking appointments if people would like to come and see the art, due to COVID and everything. We also have another art exhibit that is coming up, and there is a postcard on your table in front of you for all of you to look at in case you're interested. And there's 3 really great artists. And last but not least, you'll see that we just finished up a development brochure with kind of past, present, and future projects that the CRA has been working on. Because we do get a lot of requests for, what's coming up and what's happening and what we're involved in. So staff has been working on that for about the last month. And those are also at your table. And if you would like any copies to give to any of your friends or people who might be interested in investing, please let us know. But I'll hand it over to Chris. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, hi. Just a quick update. I provided you guys a spreadsheet of some of the grants, or all the facade, interior, and public infrastructure grants we've done since 2016. I know there's some questions in the past about kind of a lot of grants coming in front of you, and do we have enough money this year to pay out this grant or do this grant? And the purpose of it was really just to show how much has come in front of the board for approval, and then how many of those have actually gotten to completion and paid out. So over the past 3 years, I mean, there were some large projects that came in front of the board, such as the hotel on O Street, the restaurant on Lucerne Avenue that was awarded. Both of those were awarded over $50,000, but unfortunately those projects fizzled out. So fortunately that money stays with the CRA and goes back into, gets kind of rolled over into the following year, or gets rebudgeted to the following year. But just wanted to give you guys an update as far as where every grant stands, where every project stands, and how much was actually paid out each year. So there's also a spreadsheet, or a PowerPoint here of some of the before and after of the projects that we've done since 2016 to current. I think it was in your packet as well. So if you guys have any questions about either the list of projects and amounts spent, or where we stand, let me know. Emily, can you scroll through them? Any questions?
Are there any questions for Chris?
Mr.
Seeing-
Chair. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. Who was that spoke up?
No, it was me. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, okay. So, Chris, I just had, I love this chart, and I love the other picture as well. Sorry that you have up on the screen, Emily. But the chart that was also included, I thought was extremely helpful for me to kind of understand. I had a question in my head about how many of these end up falling out, right?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see that and why. So thank you for that. I know that probably wasn't easy to put together.
It was easy.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
All right. I just think it's interesting. And you see some of the same ownership with the grant getting revoked. And I get it that some of this is for tenants who may have had some trouble during COVID. I totally get it. When a grant comes forward, I guess what I'm curious about, because I'm going to save this chart, I would be curious to know if it is a similar owner that may have had 3 or 4 grants fall out. I guess I'd be curious to know that on a grant application. I don't know if that's something that we should use to weigh in a decision. In my mind, these grants should be used to leverage real
and serious development. And honestly, I take 2019 as, I put an asterisk next to that because there's some weirdness there. But I'm just curious, and I don't know how the rest of the board might feel about that. But extremely helpful to kind of see this chart, and I saved it in the spot that I used to refer backwards to. So thank you for that. But is there any, is there any, maybe I'll just leave that out there in the ether, but is there any thoughts to sort of identifying someone who might be not as safe as a bet in terms of long term, and maybe no one else feels that way? I just want to see this money used and used every year for real serious development that occurs. And that's it. That's my only comment.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
I
Yep.
would just actually, Mark, I appreciate that comment. To that extent, can that just be like a checkbox or something on the application going forward? Have you ever been awarded a grant before, or Chris, is that something that you track anyway?
Yeah, we do. We don't deny anyone if they've received a grant unless it's for the same property. Then we look at it and say, we gave you a facade grant in 2015 or 2016. We're not going to give you a facade grant again in 2021. But as far as same owners go, there's a handful of property owners in downtown and Lake Worth that we're constantly in touch with, and they know our programs real well, and they're okay with applying for the grants, and they're familiar with all the stipulations and criteria that are required. So we have no problem working with them as long as they follow through on what they promised to do. But if a project happens to fall through, it falls through. We go on and process the next application.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought that was I thought that was a comment worth weighing, whether or not that would be part of something that's included in applications. If not, going forward, it sounds like, Chris, you certainly keep track of this. So is this something that you update kind of, on a schedule, or just kind of when you think it might be necessary, put in front of the board?
Every time we close out a grant, every time we pay out a grant and close it out, it gets updated. Yeah. So last one that got paid out, the last one that got paid out was for Tropical Point Plaza, the Gentle Pet project last month.
Okay, cool.
Question, Doc Holidays, do we know the status of that, whether it's going to move or not? It's
good question.
I understand the tragedy that occurred with it, but I don't know if it's someone else is picking it up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what I'm doing anymore with this thing. Actually, yes, it is moving forward. It's not going to be exactly the same concept, but I can say at this time that there will be 2 different businesses going forward, just as it was when it was to be Doc Holidays and Dr. Spirit. So there is a group of people who will be doing a restaurant there, and there is another group of people who will be doing a vodka distillery there. And I just learned that this week. So Mr. Kislin hopes that probably their goal anyway is to try to get everything open by the end of the year.
Oh, that's fabulous news.
It is.
Yeah, good point. Are we good? Okay, thank you for that. I'll take a motion to adjourn, please. Oh, I apologize. Board comment. Start with you, Drew, please.
Okay, good meeting. Thanks. So the person that was sitting on the bench, his name is Henry Chiquito, and he actually runs our public meetings at the Water Management District, which honestly, we've got a reputation of running Zoom meetings better than anybody at the water, and that's Henry. And if you ever watch you'll see why. And so I put Henry in touch with these. This is a step in the right direction with this. But I know he can do a lot more because, right now we still got headphones on, but at the board, but they don't have headphones on. We may not have the equipment here, but I put him in touch with the staff, and I'm glad to see that he's getting put to use. So thank you, Joan and Emily, for that. It's better for me. I don't know how it is for y'all. So anyway, just like to introduce you to Henry. That's all I have. And I appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you. I just want to say congrats to the newly elected officials that we have. Look forward to working together and also seeing and hearing some of the vision for Lake Worth in the coming years. It's exciting, and that's it from me.
You didn't know I was going to call on you.
I thought I
now.
had a few more minutes. Am I unmuted? Can everybody hear me? Am I doing this
Yes.
right? I'm so uncomfortable with technology, and my apologies yet again. So I really like that PowerPoint presentation showing the way the grants have been sort of, or the money has been incorporated and to be applied, because I think that really puts in a very nice package, sort of the impact that this board and this organization makes in the community. And I think that's important to kind of put out there, because I think people lose track of some of the things we do. It's always easier to be critical, right? With respect to the mid, I think it's hugely encouraging. If anybody's driven by there, people have moved in super enthusiastically. Those patios and balconies look amazing, and clearly there was a need. So that's pretty much all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Brent?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know I just took the mid grand opening, and just to kind of parrot Lee's comments, it was awesome. It was just great to see. It's such a signal of, I think, what the CRA can do. It was a huge open lot and a tiny party rental building for most of the time I've lived in Lake Worth, which is 15, 17 years, something like that. The property to the north is going to do something similar, the thing with the Bohemian. And, I think it's terrific, and I think the way that the economy is working and the setup here with the staff and the opportunity, I think we can work with the commission and residents that maybe have some concerns. Work with them and a nice open dialogue and find a way to bring some of that success we're seeing right there on Dixie to the L&M properties, maybe to this K Street property. And so I look forward to that.
Great. Tom?
Who to look at. I would just say that, look, we've had a tremendous amount of interest in this town for good reason, thanks to Joan's hard work and the work of the CRA staff. And I want to see that continue. I want to see it keep going. We don't want to lose momentum. We're heading in the right direction, and I hope that continues to go that way. That's all I have. Thanks, y'all.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for all those comments. I enjoyed oh, see, John?
I know, I'm just sitting here so quiet.
I know.
I just think that the way that the mid has been done from one end to the other, I hope it sends a signal of success for how the Bohemian's going to be done from one end to the other. And I know we've had all the land clearing and some of the site planning starting for that. So it's kind of exciting that's going to be a really unbelievable project, right? Where the CRA has been focusing a lot of resources. So I'm looking forward to see how that goes. Also, the purchase of the property in downtown, I think that gives us a lot more flexibility, as Tom said earlier, I believe, and not just us, but gives the city more flexibility. When I say us, it means really the city, and gives us a chance of doing more for more. And I think it's a great idea. And hopefully I'll be able to rejoin you live in either the next meeting or the meeting after that, because they're almost getting down to people my age for vaccine. So, I would just love to be down there and do all that. I just don't like being inside with people and stuff like that right now. Love being outside with people, but inside with people makes me a little nervous. So anyway, looking forward to that and rejoining everybody in the near future, because I think being together, there's just a harmonious nature of our interactions. Also, thank you, Joan, for getting the bond attorney to discuss those loan questions that I had. That I generally thought it was a really good idea to consolidate our financing. I just had questions about that one issue, that one paragraph. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Sorry, I forgot about you.
There I am.
The downside of going last is that everybody comes up with these great comments, and then I just have to say I agree with all of you. Short and sweet. I did though enjoy the mid grand opening, and I do agree with John that it is an example of what I would consider a flawless project. Really, from beginning to end, they move so quickly, and I didn't hear not even a single complaint from anybody involved. So really amazing. Those guys know what they're doing. Thank you, everybody, and move or look for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Drew and seconded by Brent. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
everyone.
Happy
Good
St.
night, all.
Patrick's Day.